Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Listen Up Girl Podcast. Today's episode is a deeper one because we're talking about what's happening right now when it comes to LGBTQ rights, visibility, and the reality behind the headlines. Some progress, but some pushback, and a lot happening in between. Let's start with something that really highlights how serious things are right now. First, trans suicide data. The story is very heavy. But it's important. New data suggests that trans people in the UK are dying by suicide at disproportionately high rates. Less than 1% of the population, but 7% of all child suicides. Just take that in for a second. That gap is not small. And experts say this isn't happening in isolation. They are pointing to systematic factors: long wait times for gender affirming care, barriers to mental health support, and ongoing social stigma. And here's something else to consider. Researchers say the data is likely incomplete, meaning the real number could actually be higher. This isn't just a statistic, it's a warning sign, and about what happens when people don't have access to the support they need or the environment to feel safe on who they really are. Very sad. Now let's move into something that feels a little more step forward. New Zealand blood donation rules. New Zealand is lifting long-time standing restrictions on blood donation. For years, gay and bisexual men were excluded, not based on behavior, based on identity. Now that changes. Starting May 8th, all donors will be assessed using behavior-based screening. That means recent partners, sexual activity, STI history, the same criteria for everyone. And this matters because it aligns with science. It increases fairness and expands the donor pool. At a time when blood shortages are still a global issue, it's a shift toward treating people as individuals, not categories. Love that. Next, Hungary LGBTQ plus law. So let's zoom out to Europe because Hungary's anti-LGBTQ plus law is under serious pressure. The law restricts content related to homosexuality and gender identity for minors across schools, media, and publishing. Critics say it effectively censors LGBTQ plus visibility, and now it's being challenged at the European Union's highest court. Multiple countries are backing that challenge, arguing that the law violates freedom of expression, human dignity, and actual equal rights. And here's the other side of this. At the same time as restrictions increase, resistance is growing too. There is a proposal for a new LGBTQ plus TV channel focused on queer culture and storytelling. And that contrast, restrictions and resistance, that's the moment we're in. Ever since the new president for Hungary has stepped in, they're now talking about getting an LGBTQ plus TV channel. So we are making progress. Now the far right figure banned from the UK, where a far right U.S. political figure has been banned from entering the country. Valentina Gomez was scheduled to speak at a rally in London, but officials revoked her travel authorization, saying her presence was not conducive to public good. And that decision didn't come out of nowhere. Gomez has a history of inflammatory rhetoric, targeting LGBTQ plus people, immigrants, and Muslims, including public actions like burning LGBTQ plus inclusive books. So this wasn't just about one moment, it was about a pattern. But even after the ban, she posted online saying she would attempt to enter the UK anyway. So clearly the situation isn't over. Why don't you just not be a hateful person and then maybe you can go to the UK? Like, why be a bitch? Why be a complete asshole? Anyway, next, Russia LGBTQ plus crackdown. Let's start and talk about Russia. Things are escalating. A court in St. Petersburg, Russia, has labeled the Russian LGBT network as extremist organization. And that designation is incredibly serious because under Russian law, that means anyone associated with the group could face prosecution. And this is part of a broader crackdown from so-called propaganda laws to now targeting entire organizations. And the impact, it pushes people further into fear, further into isolation, and further away from support. It's like Russia has taken so many steps backwards to where the rest of the world was at one point. Next, Texas Tech policy. So back in the U.S., a new policy at Texas Tech University is raising concerns. The school is restricting professors from discussing LGBTQ plus topics in certain core courses. even when that content is part of the standard textbooks. So this isn't about adding something new, it's about removing something that already exists. Supporters call it neutrality, critics call it censorship. Because when you remove LGBTQ plus topics from education, you're not just changing lessons, you're reshaping understanding. Next, book bans surge, and this connects back to a broader trend. Book bans in the US have hit an all-time high. I mentioned yesterday there was over 6,500 books targeted in 1 year, many of them LGBTQ plus. And these books often deal with identity, mental health, relationships, and real experiences. So removing them doesn't just erase these realities, it just limits access to understanding. And in today's world, we need all the understanding we can do and for people to get them to understand LGBTQ plus people are just people. So let's hope these book ban surges start to end soon. And our last story is the MAGA world is increasingly split over its feelings towards Israel. On one hand, you may feel many evangelical leaders who love Israel because they see its existence as critical to the component of the second coming of Christ. And on the other hand, you have influential voices on the right, like Tucker Carlson, decrying Christian Zionism versus brain virus and dangerous hearsay. But they are also talking about things more politically. And there is a big division from within the MAGA circles, especially around foreign policy. But there is one area where they still strongly agree, opposition to LGBTQ rights, and they're doing that across all of MAGA. The stance remains consistent, and that matters because even when the moment split, they can still unify and target specific communities, which they will continue doing, is my guess. And that's today's episode, and here's one takeaway. If progress and pushbacks are happening at the same time, and both of them, we are shaping what comes next. This podcast is not just to bring you news and pop culture. It is to bring you stories that are really happening in the LGBTQ plus community. It's important to stay informed. I know all of us at one point or another are like, I can't listen to any more news. It's overwhelming what's happening in today's world, but it's really important to stay informed. So if you think somebody else needs to hear this news and to stay informed, please share it with somebody you know. Make sure you subscribe and also leave a review because the more reviews you leave, the more people will hear this podcast. Thanks so much for listening. I'm Randles-Friedman, and I'll be back tomorrow with more LGBTQ plus news.